Yo, 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 peeps, what's up? Shawn from the Good Dog, trying to come up with something desperately trying to come up with something funny for the intro for the Q&A Saturday. We have a protocol, we have a theme, we have a blueprint, we have a framework that we stick to, and it requires humor. It requires humor in order for then to kick into the intro music, then to kick into the actual show. Problem is, we are completely devoid, completely absent of any humor.
Yes.
So
It's a con.
it's a catastrophe. It's a catastrophe. So
I think it's funny how
how not funny we are.
We are funny. Just like when we have to sit down and be funny, it's like
okay.
We can't be funny.
So the real secret is we're actually exceptionally funny. It's just when the pressure's on, the humor it kind of like just pours out of our pores and it just like ends up on the floor.
It pours out of our pores.
It pours out of our pores. Anyways, guys, so I promise we're really funny, just not right now. And with that, let's jump into the show. Can I see your ID, please?
I don't have one.
Okay, so here we go. Ready? Yep. Hey everybody, it's Shawn from the Good Dog, and this is the Good Dog's Q&A Saturday, episode number 151. I'm a little rusty. I was like, it'll just show up.
I was waiting for you to say it so I can go da pa pa.
Well, the real question is, why am I yelling into the microphone? It's like I'm announcing, like, there's a camera right here and there's a microphone right here. Guys, I'm just rusty. I'm just getting back into the groove. So bear with me if the volume levels are up and down and the content's up and down. And
I have that part handled.
And the humor is just down. So we'll see. Maybe we like a an airplane that's like fighting for altitude. And it's like brr, brr, brr. Maybe we can actually pull it up and rescue it from ultimate doom. So
let's try. Let's do
okay, let's see what we can do. Maybe we can let me think of the right word. Inject a little humor into this in appropriate moments, okay?
Yes.
That means no Polish humor, no German humor. That means you're going to have to reach down into your New Zealand-esque,
I don't have
Aussie. I know you didn't live in.
Worse.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, let's reach back into those kind of lands. But unfortunately, the Germans and the Poles just aren't known for their
You don't know any though. Like,
their wielding of mass amounts of humor.
I think I'm very funny when I'm amongst my people.
Amongst her people. I think I'm really funny when I'm amongst my people too.
The Irish?
My family, because they just feel compelled to laugh. Right. There's just it's just kind of a courtesy. Anyways, okay. So guys, let me just jam into this so we don't get too caught up in all of our silliness here or lack thereof. So a couple things to remind you guys of. So new leashes, both nylon, 4 foot, 6 foot, and biothane, 4 foot, 6 foot, and in baby biothane, which are 1/2 inch. Standard biothane, which are 3/4 of an inch.
No, so the actual biothane are 3/4 inch, 4 and 6 foot, and they have a double swivel and a removable backup. Then the baby bio is 1/2 inch, only in 4 foot, still in all the other colors, and it doesn't have like a
traditional backup.
Yes, so basically it comes with a backup piece that you attach to the O-ring of your prong collar,
Right.
and then to the
So you,
slip buckle.
so you can completely remove it and do whatever you want to
Exactly.
do with it. If you want to use it, if you don't.
100%.
Yeah, so we've given you a lot of options. So those are available on our
The
I was
Good Dog Way.
going to say our brand new websites, but we have 2 brand new websites. So thegooddog.net, which is for our Los Angeles, like our mothership. Then the Good Dog Training, right? Help me make sure this right. The Good Dog Training New Orleans.com, and that's for New Orleans. We don't have the Good Dog Way.com up and running just yet, but it will be soon. But if you guys are interested to see some of the cool stuff that's on the websites, they are very cool, and it's a nice upgrade from 1912 when we did the last websites. So, but you can order any of that stuff straight from thegooddog.net, correct? Cool.
Well,
cool.
It's going to redirect you to the Good Dog Way.
The old website? Okay, so don't be freaked out if you're on thegooddog.net and you're like, man, this website's fancy. And then you click to go buy something and it takes you back to 1912 and you're like,
it's like time travel.
It's good to keep up those old school skills. So, but you can purchase any of those products, including hoodies and mugs the new crew necks. What else we got on there?
Lots of stuff. We got mugs and tote bags and new 3/4 sleeves.
Yeah, all sorts of different apparel and everything like that. So you can jump into that and check it out.
And DVDs, of course. And
books.
The collars, Shawnee, the collars.
I said the collars first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. So, and we're working on brand new photographs for collars and leashes,
yes,
which will give you guys some really, really good visuals of what they look like and how they're constructed. And then we've got a new intern who just arrived. So we lost Katie, not to like a tragic train accident or coronavirus or anything like that. She went back to New York after.
Unfortunately, she did.
Yeah, we miss her. Katie was super awesome.
She's really, really awesome.
But it sounds like she's passed away. Katie was super awesome. She's
awesome
alive and well. She was alive and well. She's doing great, and she's back. She's got a family, and she's back in New York. But she was pretty sad to go.
Yeah. But she'll be back when the other girls have holidays. She'll be covering.
Yeah. So what's kind of cool is we've brought in a bunch of interns over the course of the last few years, and then whoever has been a really good fit for the team, personality dynamic wise, then what we do is we kind of keep them in the family, and they come out. Like Monique comes out, and Angie comes out multiple times, and Katie may be like our third string, quarterback. Anyways, so we've got a new intern, Brianne. I don't know her last name.
I don't know either.
But her business is Talk
Doggy to Me.
Talk Doggy to Me.
Talk Doggy to Me.
Yeah, and Talk Doggy to Me Dog Training. I think it's that long. And she's from
Canada.
Is she from Ontario? Somewhere cold. So she's very, very excited to be in LA. She's very excited in general, but she's very excited to be in LA and working with the program and working with the team. And so it's been a real nice transition, even though we lost Katie. Now that we've got Brianne, and she's just super motivated and super excited. So if anybody's interested in our intern program, it's a pretty unique, pretty special program, 3 months long, no pay, but it's an exchange of work, doing a bunch of different stuff for us, but we do a bunch of different stuff for you guys as far as education. You really get to see behind the scenes in a way that a shadow program and other things like that just don't offer. So anyways, that's that. And I'd say we jump into the show. What's that?
I want you how to.
Oh, sorry, almost forgot. New how-to tips. I tried
doing a really amazing job on filming those and finding dogs for it.
Yeah, so super high quality how-to tips. Basically free how-to training tips. Right now, you'll remember better than me.
We got how to choose the right prong collar and fit it correctly on two different type of dogs. How to open, close, all that good stuff.
Size it, fit it, the whole thing.
And then we have a prong collar dance that's uploaded right now.
Prong collar introduction. That's Jeffrey's trademark for prong collar dance.
Sorry, Jeff. I'll blur that out.
Yeah.
So our prong collar introduction, how to introduce that. Then we have
which is critical. It's really important because a lot of folks don't know about the prong collar introduction. It's and it'll explain in the video, but there's a lot of very valuable elements in that. So
and
go
then
ahead.
We have a e-collar review video that explains what kind of e-collars we use, why we prefer those,
right?
What different kinds for different dogs. Then we have how all the different gadgets that come with the different straps, the different contact points, and all that stuff. And then I'm guessing in 2 days we'll be launching the how to size and
we've already got that. Right. So we've already shot. And have you edited the that video?
I will do that tomorrow.
Pretty close. Okay, so
because tomorrow we will have the prong collar introduction.
Yeah. So basically,
we have e-collar plates. We have e-collar.
Oh, that's right.
We have all that stuff shot
Sit
already.
Down.
And then prong collar plates, prong collar down, and sit.
So much stuff, guys. So 2020 is going to be a crazy year for content. And the main goal, which we were talking about last night, strategizing, or yesterday afternoon, was that right now we used Ozzy for a lot of the prong collar training, and Ozzy is Shelby's parents' dog, and Ozzy's just a sweet, easygoing cupcake, a little bit of a loose cannon, a little bit all over the place. So we've been using him, but the goal is to be able to use a bunch of different dogs. So dogs of all different levels of challenge, from cupcakes, because some of you are going to have cupcakes, all the way up, from across the spectrum, more challenging, to some pretty seriously challenging dogs, to help show you guys how we'll work with dogs like that, using the same concepts, but then adjusting, tweaking how we apply them to best serve you guys, so you can work with your dogs and be successful no matter what your dog happens to look like.
Something super important that we didn't write down that's also going to happen.
What's that?
The puppy videos.
You want to explain? Go ahead. Knock yourself out.
On February
Can we turn this
1st,
off? Because it's very distracting.
I'm sorry. I just want to make sure that
I know.
we don't miss anything.
We've got cookies being delivered.
Because it's Q&A Saturday. Anyway, So on February 1st, our puppy was born. So we are waiting for it to turn 8 weeks old. It's a Cane Corso puppy, and we are very excited. But with the new puppy arriving, we plan on doing the most in-depth puppy how-to training series that you can find,
that the world has ever seen.
100% every single day. What does the structure look like, and just those basic things. How do we get him in and out of the crate? How do we start teaching thresholds?
A lot of stuff that people struggle with, that dog trainers do all the time. But if you're an owner, a lot of things like simple stuff like potty training can drive you nuts. And even with us who have a lot of experience, like working with Billy and getting Billy to a place where she was really, really predictable and consistent with potty training, it took a good stretch of time, and we were pretty consistent. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but we were pretty damn consistent. So I can only imagine what it's like for other people without that experience.
100%. So you have the who is your dog component, and then what can you do with that? For example, both Archie and Marula potty trained so easy. They had one accident, that was it.
Yeah.
But then Billy was great in the crate from the beginning, where Marula gave me hell for months.
They've all got secret little weapons.
Right,
they're like,
right,
I'll be great with potty training, and then they're in the crate and they're like, ah! Going screaming, going nuts.
It will be a great, amazing training series. We will be doing up until from 8 to 16 weeks. We'll be doing food and clicker and marker work, leash pressure to teach all the commands, and then slowly moving into prong and moving into e-collar. And apart from the actual training stuff, how do we introduce our dogs to the new puppy? How are we gonna introduce new people? Where are we gonna take it to socialize? Meet new people and see new things, experience stuff. So all that is going to be super amazing.
Yeah. So your big goal, besides getting a new puppy in here, and we really want a Cane Corso. I've wanted one for a long time. So it looks like all systems are go. And in New Orleans, it's nice to have a big dog that's roaming your bottom floor here, or when you're out on walks, just to keep things safe. But I think you really want to try and show the most in-depth kind of puppy tutorial that's possible.
Oh,
So
the
that'll be
pretty
super
and old and
valuable.
ugly.
Yeah, pretty and the ugly. Okay, so cookies are going to be here any second. Guys, like, I'm sorry you're not here to be able to enjoy.
5 minutes.
So we got to cover a question in 5 minutes. Okay, so let's jump in. Do you want to read it to me, and then we'll.
We actually have to pause it first so we can restart for the question.
Oh yeah. Okay, we're going to pause it first, and then we're going to restart for the questions. Ready? And we're out.
You have to just say the question number 1. No, I say question number 1.
We're working it out. Working it out, fans.
Okay.
Rock and roll. Come on, baby.
Question number. Why? Is it my accent?
It's just that we're so rusty with this that it's like you just said, you've got to read this. No, you've got to read this. You're like, oh yeah, I got to read this.
Well, I know I was reading it, but
I'm just laughing.
That
I'm just laughing at that, not your accent. Your accent's very lovely. Ready?
He's
Go
so
ahead.
Sweet. Okay, so again, question number 1, and I want to say it's Ain McGinley, but I don't know how to pronounce it because
I think you're good.
Pronunciation is pretty hard. But like, I'm doing my best here.
I give my Irish stamp of approval.
Okay, there you go. I feel much better now, thank you. Okay. I have a border collie. We are working on e-collar training on walks as he pulls very hard. He's also on a prong to assist on training. It seems to be going well so far, early days. However, as he's a collie, he does the collie stalk at traffic, crouching, stalk, and following traffic with his head. He isn't lunging, but this behavior is worrying as I'm thinking if a lead broke, he would be straight after the cars. How do I break this habit?
Is it my turn?
This is your turn.
Okay.
Do it.
Okay. So, Ain. All right. So, as always, I have notes because my brain is a porous thing and memorization ain't my bag. But good ideas usually are. So, or good suggestions. So, first thing I want you to do is focus on a perfect heel. Now, you might be thinking, well, why? And what you're looking to do is stack some leverage, and that perfect heel starts to create a lot of conversation about, I want you here, and you're going to be corrected for any motion out of this, which starts to create a different mindset with your dog towards you. So I know we're talking about the crouching thing, but it's always better to create leverage rather than just try and attack the singular thing that's the problem. So dog, if the dog, I think you mentioned the dog is pushing out a little bit, even if that's not a major problem, if your dog is just every once in a while starting to kind of forge a little bit, starting to kind of do the cha-cha-cha, correct that and demand an impeccable heel. Decide where you want your dog's head and make sure that it doesn't move from there. We typically ask for the dog's cranium, the bulk of the dog's head, to be parallel with our hip. Don't move. Nose can be a little in front. Cranium, parallel with the hip. Don't move. Correction for even the slightest little forging out. What it ends up doing is gets the dog to be really self-aware of all of its behavior. Instead of just being like, I'm freewheeling, I'm walking, I'm doing pretty good. I'm moving a little bit here, a little bit back here, a little bit over this way, a little bit this, but nothing's really happening. Or I'm starting to move a little bit. Correction. Ooh, I got to be right here. Correction. Oh, I got to be right here. Slow down. Correction. Oh, I got to be right here. All of a sudden your dog's like, I really better mind my manners. Now you've got leverage. Now you've got a dog who's actually thinking about what they're doing and thinking about you and thinking about what's appropriate behavior. So first stack of leverage. Then when you get to the actual situation, which is the crouching down, getting into that border collie, stalking, staring, I'm going to go bite that Humvee or whatever the hell it might be. So this is a pretty simple one, right? So if you've got the heel immaculate like I recommended, and then all of a sudden you see your dog at the split second or as soon as possible in the sequence starting to move into that, e-collar correction. I think you're doing prong and e-collar. So e-collar correction with a nose simultaneously. If I was walking and your dog did that, I'm out there, heels looking great. All of a sudden the dog starts to like boom, starts to move down. I would be at a level that I know the dog would care about, tap with a no, and pull up with the prong collar, right? You can absolutely use both tools simultaneously. No, pull up, and check it out. So no at say a 10, pull up at say like a 6 or a 7 on your prong kind of like pressure, and your dog's like, well, 10 minutes later I'm doing the same thing. All right, now I'm at 30 on the e-collar, and now I'm at like a 9 or a 10 on the prong. No, your dog like goes whoa and pop up with the prong collar, and your dog goes, whoa, I really should think twice about just getting into this thing. The only reason your dog's doing it is because obviously genetics, but then being allowed to. So genetics are always going to be in play, but we can absolutely mold them and move them into a better space. So what you need is a consequence that your dog cares enough about to not do the crouch. Start with leverage, get an immaculate heel, then correct firmly, mess around with the different tools, find out which one works better. You might find that just the firm prong collar pop up by itself, whew, perfect. You might find that the e-collar correction, perfect. You might find that you need a combination. That's what I suggest to you. Any other suggestions?
Just as far as like instincts and those herding type of dogs, things that they do. So you're not just like correcting for the dog crouching and doing the stalky thing, but the mindset that's behind it, because that's no, just like a dog who in the beginning was looking at dogs and then started being more concerned about them,
like
and
a reactive dog,
right?
Yeah.
And then started lunging. I've met many border collies who had issues with chasing motorbikes, chasing cars, chasing shadows, hurting kids, and like there is no reason, regardless of genetics, that a herding dog should be allowed to do that. Period.
We get that there's that inherent genetic component there,
but we directed.
But we have to redirect it into an appropriate fashion if they're going to live with us.
Right. If it's a sheep dog and he does it with sheep, then like great, you want that, but you don't want it on any other thing. And that's how I find that cars are big sheep. Right, but that's how I saw a lot of very like neurotic border collies turn into like a mess because they're allowed to keep doing those things. Yeah. Cool. And just like Billy, our little kettle dog, since she was little, she would like run up behind the other dogs and bite them to where they had enough. So we had
bite their ankles.
Yeah, bite the heels to where we had to put the kibosh on that because.
Is that why they call him a healer?
I wonder. AKC people don't like you calling cattle dogs healers, apparently.
Come on.
Fight me. So basically, just because she's a healer and when we're out sheep herding, she can do all of that stuff, but like not on people, not on other dogs.
Yes, not on people.
Right.
Which she's done before. Okay, cool. Yes. So let's move on. Let's keep this rock and rolling. We got a ton of questions. You guys did such a good job of sending us so many great questions that we might have bitten off more than we can chew. We'll see how long we can stay awake. We've got some cookies, coffee, wine, water. I think we're set for the battle, for the duration of the battle. Okay, so you now read question number 2 because that's how we do it.
Question number 2 is from Corey. Extremely fearful, reactive dog now could be mistaken for a normal dog. Thanks to you, Shawn.
Yay!
Is there something I can do to build her confidence more, though? Now that the behaviors I don't like are largely gone, I would still like to build her confidence and get rid of that last uneasiness she still carries on walks. Do you have any suggestions, or is it just a repeated practicing of trouble-free walks?
So first of all, super awesome. Thanks for the message. Thanks for the comment. Really proud of you. Really proud of all the progress and the fact that the dog went from such a more challenging place to so much progress and looking like a normal dog. That's just a beautiful thing. So here's where we get into some stuff that can be challenging of its own. And my main recommendation is always guided, structured exposure. And I have this theory, we've talked about it, everybody on my team knows my theory that secretly if I could do it, because I've watched people here and all the like kind of like street kids here in New Orleans. They all have dogs, and those dogs are exposed 24/7, no contrast, no inside the house and then outside, to where they have a contrast of like, this is comfortable, this is weird, this is foreign, this is familiar, anything like that. These dogs are exposed constantly, and none of them give a crap about anything, whether it's other dogs, whether it's drunken people, whether it's carriages with horses, whether it's brass bands, whether it's who knows what. And so I have this theory that if you could just camp out for 3-4 months, which we really can't, but if you could camp out for 3 or 4 months and just sit on a sidewalk in a very, very crazy, loud, busy kind of scenario or environment, that most dogs would eventually, as I've seen with people and myself, run out of anxiety, right? I truly believe that. But that's a really near impossible thing to do. So, but we can try and replicate it as much as possible, which is, like I was saying, with as much structured exposure as possible. And you know what that means already. That means like dogs don't just go out and be willy-nilly. That means like dogs are in heel, dogs are in a down, dogs are doing whatever you want them to be doing. They're listening to you. So it's highly structured, but they're around things that might be bothering them. And the best thing might just be a downstay in a noisy environment, and don't move. Don't get out of it. Even if you're worried, don't stare at that person. Don't stare at that horse carriage. Don't, whatever it is. So I haven't found a magic trick. That's the closest thing that I found to magic, is just consistent exposure over and over again. Now, that all said, there are people that will recommend things like agility courses and having dogs, step up onto, like walls and get up on tables, and things like that can build confidence. But the confidence that I think you're talking about, which is like novelty, things that they're like, oh man, what is this? What is this person? What is this thing over here? I think that that's a bit of a different thing. And so, what was I going to say with that? So, okay. So what I think we have to also factor in is, like with our dog, Billy Brown, who's just a little over a year old, and she's been exposed here in New Orleans to a lot of stuff. Not as much maybe as I would like to have. I haven't camped out with her and sat out there on Decatur Street and just let all the craziness go by. But we've definitely walked her in the French Quarter, and she's had a lot of exposure. That said, she's not been abused. She's not been neglected. She's not had training. She's had it all. But part of her genetic makeup, part of who she is as a dog, still has a bit of a nervous, worried, concerned kind of initial reaction. And it's minor. It's not some explosive thing. She's not biting anybody. She's not losing her marbles. It's a woof here or a woof there.
Even if she's worried, she's still super like curious and
So it's a very like minor thing. But what I'm trying to get across is that we've done like basically what you would say is like doing everything right, and we still have a dog that has some stuff because it's built in, and she will still be nervous first, and then kind of like scope things out, assess, and then start to get more comfortable and work through it. So who knows where she'll be in a year or two. But my main point is that it sounds like you've done fantastic work. Keep doing exposure, guided exposure with accountability. Make sure your dog's not allowed to listen to the fear. Make sure your dog is listening to you in the training, so you can override that and try and reprogram as much as possible and repattern as much as possible. And then also be keenly aware of the possibility that you may get to a spot or get to a space where you kind of hit the ceiling, and it's just who the dog is. And so that's nothing to bemoan and be like, oh, wow. It's like, it is what it is. We've all got our limits, dogs, humans. And so we do the very best we can. It sounds like you've already done amazing work. And what I just like to always impress upon people, you as well as anybody else out there listening, is it's easy to get into the mindset, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but a lot of folks have been programmed with this, to just like, any dog can be transformed. Any dog can, there's no ceiling. Any dog can become comfortable. If you're comfortable and you do the right thing, you got the right energy and everything like that, it's going to be aces. That's unfortunately not the case. So dogs do come with baggage. Dogs do come with individual genetics and personalities and predilections and ways of behavior. So do the very best you can, and then see what you get. You can always check back in with us, and we'll go from there. But that's my best recommendation for you, but also for everybody else, because I think that situation is a pretty common one. So cool. Hopefully that helps. I'll just sit here like a fat pig.
Okay. Question number 3, why Shawn eats his cookie, is from Tessa.
Sorry.
Okay. I do performance dog training, enjoy disc events. There are venues that won't allow me to compete if I don't say I only use positive reinforcement. They say you can't perform or compete if you use prong or e-collars or train your dog at home in a way they don't like, basically, and still do the event. One lady tried to make it so you couldn't even put a bandana on dogs because it might be hiding an e-collar. My question is, should I just keep bullshitting them about having a more balanced training style? I want to compete, but in Ontario, all of the disc dog events are run by fanatics.
Does that mean I have to answer now?
Yes. Put the cookie away.
One last bite. What?
You just ate a piece of fluff.
I ate a piece of fluff? It tasted good.
I was going to grab it, but you...
Okay. Sorry, guys. You know how we roll. It's only fun if it's a party. Little coffee, little wine, fresh cookies from Nola Cookie Company, delivered fresh and hot and melty to our door. God bless 2020. Okay, so Tessa Lee,
Yes.
I've got some notes for you. So first of all, this has to be a personal choice. I can't tell you go out and bullshit them. I can't tell you to lie. I can't tell you to fib. I can't tell you to conceal the truth. That said, I personally, am I under oath? I personally would not allow a bunch of pure positive, force-free fanatics to derail me from having fun with my dog. That's my own personal kind of feeling about it, because I know I'm not damaging my dog. And the only thing that it would cause me any kind of questioning would be, is like, am I getting any advantage over the other competitors, right? Is the prong and e-collar work creating an advantage where we're going to do better than the other people?
But they have the choice to do that too.
Well, no, they don't, because if you're a pure positive zealot and you're absolutely against it, you don't have that choice, because that means you would be tormenting, torturing, and destroying your dog. So anyways, so you have to kind of think about that, and it's really kind of it's just a very individual question about what you think about that. Personally, I love the idea of somebody using balanced training, going in, doing like disc, I think you're doing disc dog, if that's what you call it, frisbees and like sporty work and all that cool fun stuff. And if you're doing that and you've been using balanced training as a foundational kind of space to train your dog, and you end up kicking butt and having a great time, then I'm all for it. Because personally, it just proves that using tools like that doesn't ruin your dog's drive, doesn't make your dog not have a great time, doesn't ruin your relationship, and might even make your dog better than the other dogs, because you actually have yes and no. So for me, I'd do it. And just to kind of close that out, when I was when I was competing with my girl Belle in flyball, they had similar rules. So you couldn't have at one of the meets, if there was a prong collar in sight, It was like a witch hunt. They'd burn you at the stake. E-collars, don't even think about it. So Belle was never on an e-collar, so that made it easy. I'd always use a prong collar just because I loved the ease. Like she could walk on a flat buckle collar, but it was so easy to communicate with her with the prong. We were just like perfectly connected, ease of communication. I loved it. So anyways, I did that. And then of course I would just mind my P's and Q's and not like walk by any of the big like tournaments. But if I was taking her out for a walk around the area, you know, kind of on the outskirts of the tournament, I'd put a prong collar on her and we'd go out and jam and do our thing. And then when it was time to compete, prong collar comes off and we went, and this little pit bull that I found on the side of the freeway would go and kick ass on all of these, like would kick ass on Malinois and border collies and all these like highfalutin purebred dogs. And she just kicked ass. So I share that story just to let you know that I was in a similar, not the exact situation, but in a similar situation. And I was like, screw you. I'm gonna have a great time with my dog. And just because you guys don't agree with prong collars or e-collars, fair enough. I won't use them in competition or anything like that. But I'm going to walk my dog with a prong collar because I like to. And so you have to make your own decision about that. And I would sure hate for these kind of bullying, pure positive, force-free zealots to crush or inhibit your ability to go out and have a blast with your dog. Yep. So you want to add anything to that? Or
no, I just agree 100%.
Okay. So that's my advice. And let me know what you choose to do. Okay? Thanks.
Question number 3, why Shawn eats his cookie, is from Tessa.
Sorry.
Okay. I do performance dog training, enjoy disc events. There are venues that won't allow me to compete if I don't say I only use positive reinforcement. They say you can't perform or compete if you use prong or e-collars or train your dog at home in a way they don't like, basically, and still do the event. One lady tried to make it so you couldn't even put a bandana on dogs because it might be hiding an e-collar. My question is, should I just keep bullshitting them about having a more balanced training style? I want to compete, but in Ontario, all of the disc dog events are run by fanatics.
Does that mean I have to answer now?
Yes. Put the cookie away.
One last bite. What?
You just ate a piece of fluff.
I ate a piece of fluff? It tasted good.
I was going to grab it, but you...
Okay. Sorry, guys. You know how we roll. It's only fun if it's a party. Little coffee, little wine, fresh cookies from Nola Cookie Company, delivered fresh and hot and melty to our door. God bless 2020. Okay, so Tessa Lee,
yes.
I've got some notes for you. So first of all, this has to be a personal choice. I can't tell you go out and bullshit them. I can't tell you to lie. I can't tell you to fib. I can't tell you to conceal the truth. That said, I personally, am I under oath? I personally would not allow a bunch of pure positive, force-free fanatics to derail me from having fun with my dog. That's my own personal kind of feeling about it, because I know I'm not damaging my dog. And the only thing that it would cause me any kind of questioning would be, is like, am I getting any advantage over the other competitors, right? Is the prong and e-collar work creating an advantage where we're going to do better than the other people?
They have the choice to do that too.
Well, no, they don't, because if you're a pure positive zealot and you're absolutely against it, you don't have that choice, because that means you would be tormenting, torturing, and destroying your dog. So anyways, so you have to kind of think about that. And it's really kind of a it's just a very individual question about what you think about that. Personally, I love the idea of somebody using balance training, going in, doing like disc, I think you're doing disc dog, if that's what you call it, frisbees and like sporty work and all that cool fun stuff. And if you're doing that and you've been using balance training as a foundational kind of space to train your dog, and you end up kicking butt and having a great time, then I'm all for it. Because personally, it just proves that using tools like that doesn't ruin your dog's drive, doesn't make your dog not have a great time, doesn't ruin your relationship, and might even make your dog better than the other dogs because you actually have yes and no. So for me, I'd do it. And just to kind of close that out, when I was working, not working, but when I was competing with my girl Belle in flyball, they had similar rules. So you couldn't have at one of the meets, if there was a prong collar in sight, it was like a witch hunt. They'd burn you at the stake. E-collars, don't even think about it. So Belle was never on an e-collar, so that made it easy. I'd always use a prong collar just because I loved the ease. Like she could walk on a flat buckle collar, but it was so easy to communicate with her with the prong. We were just like perfectly connected, ease of communication. I loved it. So anyways, I did that. And then of course I would just mind my P's and Q's and not like walk by any of the big like tournaments. But if I was taking her out for a walk around the area, you know, kind of on the outskirts of the tournament, I'd put a prong collar on her and we'd go out and jam and do our thing. And then when it was time to compete, prong collar comes off and we went, and this little pit bull that I found on the side of the freeway would go and kick ass on all of these, like would kick ass on Malinois and border collies and all these like highfalutin purebred dogs. And she just kicked ass. So I share that story just to let you know that I was in a similar, not the exact situation, but in a similar situation. And I was like, screw you. I'm gonna have a great time with my dog. And just because you guys don't agree with prong collars or e-collars, fair enough. I won't use them in competition or anything like that. But I'm going to walk my dog with a prong collar because I like to. And so you have to make your own decision about that. And I would sure hate for these kind of bullying, pure positive, force-free zealots to crush or inhibit your ability to go out and have a blast with your dog. Yep. So you want to add anything to that? Or
no, I just agree 100%.
Okay, so that's my advice, and let me know what you choose to do, okay? Thanks.
Question number 4 from Erin. What is the best technique to work on correcting creeping forward in the heel, especially when walking two dogs at the same time? Both I work with prong and e-collar, mostly E, but I'm correcting constantly. Have been trying to incorporate more 180s and unexpected turns, but still they fight it. I work both dogs mostly separate, but we do exercise walks together. 1 to 7 years and was solo until 7 months ago, so this isn't competition so much as a bad habit. While they will heel stay at my side while off leash with distractions, they constantly want to creep with their heads at 12 to 18 inches past my hip. We do a very structured permission-based household. I am consistent to a fault, but a true following heel has remained a struggle. With the newest dog, always batting to control everything, it's become more of an issue I need to fix. She's 9 months old and a handful. Any tips or a good training protocol I could implement?
Okay. All right, Erin, let's see. There's a whole shit ton of things to dive into here. Let's see if we can do this briefly. Okay, so first of all, I want to talk about the escalation sequence. The window that you have in the window you have that you can actually affect the behavioral changes in your dog, right? So it's not like, oh, they're exploding and now we can go after them. Oh, they're kind of minorly exploding and we can go after them. No, it's like you've got, say, 0 to 10. you want to correct between 0 and maybe 4, 5 tops. Once you start getting 6, 7, 8, you're probably only going to make it worse, or it's just going to turn into chaos, which is, I think, worse. So here's the deal. You are saying that you're doing a lot of the training individually with each dog. So that's great. I would continue to do that until you get each dog rocking and rolling. And then I would put both dogs together, because 2 dogs together is a really challenging thing, especially if they've got a little bit of push going on. Okay, so let's talk about that escalation sequence, and let's talk about that small window. What that means is that the first correction you do, I want it to be more valuable, and I want it to be early. And for a lot of owners, this is going to feel unfair. This is going to feel like my dog's not really doing anything that dramatic, and it feels like the consequence is excessive for what the transgression is. Here's the deal. You're ready to head out the front door, and your dog busts through the front door without you saying okay or heel or whatever, or release. I wouldn't release them. I would say heel, or let's go, and make them move through there where they know that they're supposed to be with you. But the second you see your dog not wait for your permission and jam through the door, you should already be rolled up to a level on the e-collar that your dog is really going to care about. Now, I don't mean, did you say sickening? Significant. Sickening significant. I'm not saying be at 100, but I'm saying if your dog works at a 7, then let's think about a 20 or a 25 or a 30. If your dog works at a 25, let's think about a 40, right? So like what you're looking for is a correction that's really going to get your dog's attention when their mind and their body, like all the adrenaline and all the stuff coursing through their body, is going to be at its lowest level, but there's still a bit of that excitement and arousal happening. So this is really the strategic tip with this stuff, is to set the tone straight away. So whether it's at the threshold, dog starts to move through it, you're already ready, you're at 45, your dog typically works at 20. No, your dog goes, whoa, what was that? And you're like, hey, like I didn't give you permission. And then you set your dog back up again, you go to the threshold, see what choice he makes. He does it again, up a little higher, bang, whoa, I really shouldn't do that. And that's after you've taught your dog appropriately and fairly what thresholds mean, of course. But if you're getting this excitement, arousal, like, overly aroused kind of thing where the dog is like, I'm just going to jam through no matter what, then you need to address that, because if you don't address that, then the rest of your walk's going to be hell. Like I can promise you, if you can't get a threshold to be great, you've got hell on your hands when you go for the rest of the walk. So we need to set the tone, and you've got a tiny window to set it in. So you need to do it early, and you need to do it firm, and probably earlier and firmer than what you are anticipating, because it probably doesn't feel fair. Now, same thing goes for, say your dog does great at the threshold, and then you say heel, and you start walking down your driveway, and your dog starts to take a step out. You're saying like your dog is this far out in front of you at certain points. Your dog, we have different perceptions of, or perspectives on where we think a dog should be, and I'll have you show that demonstration in a second, but hang on one sec.
I thought you said no.
No, but for me, I don't mind if the nose is a little bit ahead of my thigh, but the cranium has to be lined up with my hip bone. So if I'm walking a dog, I have a golden heel position, like this is where it should be. And what most owners do is they give the dog all this wiggle room. Well, he only moved 3-4 inches. Maybe he'll come back, or I'll correct. Like what ends up happening is you create this very wishy-washy zone of heel. Heel becomes this wide thing rather than this narrow thing. You want it to be like this. And so the moment your dog moves a little bit, correction, high. And I don't mean explosive. I don't mean like you're at 100 and you press and hold. What I'm saying is, for context, for anybody out there is like, that sounds terrible and abusive. What I'm saying is make sure it's meaningful and valuable depending on your specific dog. So if they work at a 3, maybe 10 is that level where your dog goes like, whoa. But the point is, whether it's thresholds or whether it's the first breaking of the heel position, that's your early opportunity in the escalation sequence before the mind and body get too escalated to where you're going to lose them and corrections aren't going to mean anything. That's when you want to go early and at a higher level in order to try and get your dog to de-escalate and calm down. Now that's with e-collar. Now you can also use prong collar. You can do 180s like you said that you've been doing, and I would be doing those with one dog at a time like we said, but maybe your 180s are too soft. Maybe your 180s are more like turn and follow me. What the 180 should look like is your dog starts to get out in front of you. Cool, give them some more leash. Let them really get out in front of you. And right when they get just about to the end, you plant your left foot, you let the leash go out, you move your arms out a little bit. When the dog gets to the very end, double pop with both arms, and at the same time you turn and head the other direction. And if you do it right with enough pop and body motion, your dog will go whoo. It'll startle your dog. The consequence will be significant, and you'll be moving the other direction, and your dog will be like, whew, I better be over there, because when I was over here, that consequence was not so great. It was kind of sucky. And so then you start walking this way. And if your dog walks by you, you do the exact same thing. Let him sneak right by you. Pretty soon you do 3, 4, 5 reps of that. If your 180s are significant, and your dog will be like, nah, I think I'll just hang out right here. Every time I do this, you do this thing where you like, let me go, and then the consequence is pretty significant. Not so into it. So that's with prong collar 180s. You can also do e-collar 180s, which are a little bit different, but it's the same concept, which is basically dog gets out in front of you. You wait until they get out in front of you. You're at a level that the dog cares about. Tap, turn at the same time, and you can create the same effect. Then something else we can talk about, I'm going to give you a whole bunch of stuff, and then I'm going to turn it over to her, which are the Toy Smith, I've named them stop and pops, which are basically, you have to make sure your dog knows e-collar heel, and you have to make sure your dog knows e-collar sit, or auto sits. And then what you do is you're out walking, your dog starts to move out of that golden little zone. And what you do is you roll up and you make sure you're at a significant level, whatever that is for your specific dog. The moment you stop your feet, it's a quick thing, right? You're walking, dog's out in front of you, stop, tap. And your dog, and if you need to like use your left hand for the leash, then you can pull the dog up into the sit for the first time or two, because the dog might be surprised and be like, what the hell was that? And you help them into the sit and let them know, like, when I stop like this, you better sit your butt down to the ground. Most dogs will do it in 1-2 reps, and they'll be like that. And then you say heel, you start moving. Dog starts to get out ahead of you again. Stop abruptly, bang. The same time that your legs, that your feet stop, tap, and then make sure your dog doesn't get out in front of you. The leash you can use to control, and you can also use to guide if you need it. But like I said, after a couple of reps, you'll be doing this. Walk, 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 tap. Your dog will be like, boom. Walk, 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 tap, boom. And what will happen is, because of the physiology of your dog, not just having to slow down for a heel, but actually having to sit, you'll find that dogs will typically give you a better response in the forging ahead, because there's something about the physiological act of sitting down that kind of takes the whole, like, the gumption, all the kind of like, you okay? You're falling asleep. All of the like forging ahead juice that they might have, like, oh, tap, little consequence or correction. Okay, but I'm still moving ahead. But when they sit, it actually changes the physiology, which seems to slow them down in a different way. So that's a different thing. Last thing before I turn it over to you is that I like, and I change things up, and I will try a bunch of different things. I'll give you my last kind of piece here, and that's that I like to surprise dogs, and I'll do a little, like, as we're walking, either with my left or my right leg, I will hook it around. Doesn't need to be hard, but I want to surprise the dog. Hook it around like this, deet, 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 deet. Leg comes around like this, pop, and my back of my heel comes right into the dog's chest. Doesn't push on him, doesn't try and push him back. It's just a quick tap like that. And you want to do it while you're moving. You don't want to telegraph it to the dog. You don't want your dog to be like, what the hell are you doing? Are you like Dorothy Hamill that's
I don't
way
know.
way before your time. Um, she was an ice skater. I don't know what that means, but maybe like more like Bruce Lee would be better. Anyways, so you can use these corrections where you're not doing something with an e-collar or a prong collar. Or 180s or stop and pops, but you're doing something that's very specifically coming from you, your body, and your dog will see that, and that can have a very positive effect because, for one, it's novel. Dogs are very unused to that happening. Everything like happens around their neck and stuff like that, and instead all of a sudden here comes this little foot tap that they didn't even see coming, and it comes right to their chest. And what I've found is owners that struggle a lot with dogs foraging, if they do that with the little foot tap with all the other stuff, most dogs will slow down and start to like hang back into the correct position. Last thing before I turn it over is that I'll mix and match all of these while looking for what works best for the dog. If the e-collar is working like a charm, I'm with it. If the prong collar is working like a charm, I'm with it. If the little tap to the chest is working like a charm, I'm with it. Or the 180s, I'm with it. Stop and pops, I'm with it. But I might also mix and match because I might get way more value because I'm watching the dog intently. I'm like, okay, stop and pop. Oh, that worked really well. Okay, I did 3 of them. The dog's starting to catch on, not so into it. Okay, 180. Okay, now I've combined, that's really working nice. Now e-collar correction, you know what I mean? Like if you start getting creative and not just stuck in one tool or one approach, you basically got this kitchen sink approach that's not a reckless kitchen sink approach. It's a creative combination, compilation. It's basically leveraging a bunch of different things that can keep your dog guessing rather than just like tuning a certain approach out. Like, boy, has this turned into a long question. Yes. But I'm hoping it's helpful for a lot of people because I'd say dogs pulling are one of the most prevalent issues that people struggle with over and over and over again. And so if you only get one tool approach, one method, one technique, you can stay stuck. And that's why I'm never really worried when I'm out with a dog that can't heel or is really being pushy with it, because I know I've got a million different tricks up my sleeve that I can try and apply and see what works best with the dog. So hopefully that helped, but we really, like, me and Juicy got to move on. We got we got a show coming on after this. Okay. So, all right, next question. Let's go.
Let's go. Ready? Are you ready?
Is it on?
Yes, it's on.
Because we had to do question number 4 again because the camera just mysteriously turned off.
I don't know what happened. It's those ghosts in this house.
Okay.
Question number 5 from Kimberly Brown. Are you married? And if not, do you plan on wearing Air Force Ones at the wedding?
So, I'm not currently married, but we are engaged, and we are currently very close to being married. As for the Air Force Ones, I probably will.
It's not going to go well with your blue suit.
But there's those woven ones.
I don't know.
We'll have to talk about it. We're in tense negotiations.
I say it's a no, Kimberly.
There's a pair of woven Air Force Ones down at the shop here on Canal Street. I think they're what, $1,500?
Oh, those ones. Yeah, but still, you look so nice in those fancy black shoes.
Maybe. We'll see. But if I'm gonna like stick to my guns, they're handmade in Italy, but they are actually Air Force Ones, and they're woven leather. It's pretty incredible. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
We will negotiate.
We shall negotiate. Maybe they can make me a pair in blue.
Okay. No, they have to be black. Otherwise, you're just gonna be all blue.
Okay, then we'll make them black.
Yeah. Question number 6 from Lisa. What is your advice on dog fighting within the home and owner only wants to do privates? 2 female boxers, both less than a year, 2 other dogs at home as well. 1 female boxer very submissive, the other also female heeler mix, fun police temperament. So not only do the 2 young ones fight, the heeler initiates fights by attempting to police and correct rambunctious behavior.
Like what's going on upstairs?
Yes, our dogs are.
I don't know if you guys
running
can hear
upstairs.
that or not. Okay, so Lisa, let me just run down how we do stuff like this. So we would only do fighting dogs and biting dogs, major reactivity, dogs that will redirect on walks, dogs with major resource guarding, any of the kind of like high level, even separation anxiety, high level severe issues, we'll only do them in a board and train. So we want to be able to monitor the dogs 24/7, because one of the things when you do board and trains for a long time, you realize how many moments, if you weren't living with the dogs, you'd miss. How many moments, sorry, I got a nose itch, how many moments that you would work with the dog, then send the dog home, and then a multitude, 90% of things that the dog is doing that are inappropriate behaviors, you wouldn't even see. And the owner wouldn't likely know that they're problematic behaviors. And if they did, they probably wouldn't know how to correct them. So we would never do fighting dogs in a one-on-one situation. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't trainers out there that do that. And it doesn't mean that there aren't trainers out there that do that successfully. But for us, we have found we have far more success by doing board and trains for fighting dogs. And we've done a lot of fighting dogs because we can work each dog individually, get them to the very highest standard we can get them as far as state of mind, respect, polite, how they engage with their environment, how they engage with us, how they engage around our dogs. And where was I going with that? And where was I going? I was going somewhere fascinating. Juicy Smollett stole my thought process. Let me jump back into it and see if I can find it. We talked about fresh start, right? Did I mention fresh start?
So basically, you get both dogs in, train them to the highest level they
Yep.
can be, and then once you have that, you can bring them together and
Right.
see.
Right. So sorry. Yeah, I got lost there for some reason. So then once both dogs are in their very, very best space, then you can bring them together, and then you've got a really good indicator of, okay, how do these dogs interact? How do they engage? How bad are things when they're in their best space? Now, there's pros and cons with this because the dogs aren't in their home and they're not around their owner. So you can get a false sense of security because the dogs aren't in their home, they're not around their owner, they're around you. But we've had plenty of dogs that are fight on sight kind of dogs that it doesn't matter what environment they're in or whether they're around their owner. So, but the real deal is for us, we want to get them to the highest level we can get them. Then we want to bring the owner in, have the owner work with each dog individually, start to build a new relationship with the dog, with each individual dog, to where the dog has a much more respectful relationship with the owner, is far more tuned in to consequences with the owner, structure with the owner, leadership with the owner, so the dogs are going nuts. And then have the owner take the dogs home and then work through that dynamic. And we have a bunch of safety protocols that we have in place for how we move through that, right? Whether it's muzzles and long lines and back ties, but it's not like, here your dogs are trained and go home and good luck. It's a very nuanced arc. And so once we get them good, then we get the owners really good with them, and then they go home, and then they work them individually at home, and then they slowly introduce the other dog at home with lots of safety precautions and protocols in place. And then we communicate with them and organically see what's possible. Because to be honest, you're never going to know until the dogs go home, back in their environment, and see what the owner can bring to the table. So there's all these variables. Now, you could try and do it in one-on-ones, but I just think that you're going to be putting yourself, I think you said there are even more dogs in the house. So you're putting yourself in a space that's most likely going to be chaotic. The ability to like train in a quiet, calm fashion in order to help these dogs learn at a high level will likely be terribly compromised. So part of our plan is just to be able to get the dogs out of the chaos so they can actually learn and learn how to relax, chill out, and follow commands. And to do that in a one-on-one, like I did it back in the day, and it's really, really, really hard. So my last piece of advice would be, please don't let the owners dictate to you what programs, because they want it. Don't let them dictate to you what program you're going to pursue to try and solve their problem. Your job is to be like a doctor and to say, okay, I get it. You don't want this operation, or you don't want this medication, or you don't want this lifestyle change, but here's the deal. You want to get better, this is what you have to do. And that's the position you're in. You can't be in this kind of servicey kind of space of like, well, whatever you want, I'm happy to provide, because you're actually not serving the client at the highest level if that's what's going on. Your job is to know better than them what's going to be best for their dogs, and then let them know what that is, and then let them make a decision from there. If you're in a place where you're really struggling for money, then you get into a compromise spot where you're like, I really want to like take these dogs on. But the reality is, most likely you're going to struggle in that situation. So I would much rather you be super ethical and say, this is what I believe will create the best results for you. And I want the best results for you. I want you to be happy. I want you to achieve your goals. But this is the best way for this to happen. And if this doesn't make sense to you financially or intellectually or emotionally, fair enough. Then we probably shouldn't proceed with this plan or approach to try and sort out your dogs. So that's my advice on that. And that's why we do it the way we do it. Cool? Let's move on.
All right.
All right, we good? This camera staying on?
Camera, are you staying on? I think it is staying on.
Okay, good. Let me know. I hate seeing myself though.
I know, but
I get so self-conscious. I'm rocking like Rain Man here. It's terrible. Do you know Rain Man, or is that before your time?
Rain Man? What did you say?
Rain Man?
Raining Man? It's raining man. Hallelujah, it's raining man.
Feel for me? Okay. Anyways, do you want to read Rain Man? Do you want to read a question off to me?
Okay, Daniel is saying, hey Shawn, miss you guys, say hello to that beautiful woman next to you.
Look at you getting points.
Okay, so I am trying to keep my training sessions with my clients under an hour. But for starting off, it's hard because they need a lot of information to be successful. Do you have any tips?
Okay, so thank you for the very sweet words, for the very sweet lady. So Daniel is a T3 grad. And my guess, he doesn't say explicitly in here, but my guess is that Daniel's doing one-on-one sessions.
I think so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he is. So he's running into the problem that most trainers run into, which is running out of time. So we've been down this road, and back in the day, I used to do 4 sessions, and I think back in the day I did I did an hour and a half, an hour, an hour, an hour. And I think that was, I think back in the old TGD days, and we would try and squeeze all of that stuff in. And the reality is, like, if you got a cupcake dog, if you got a dog that like already has some foundation, the owner's done a bunch of food work, and the dog knows all the commands, and you're just going to overlay some tools on top of that, e-collar or prong collar on top of that, you can get away with a lot of that stuff. If you've got a dog with reactivity, or you've got a dog that's got whatever, needs a great recall but has incredible prey drive, or is just out of its tree, can't focus, can't concentrate, you're going to need more time. So let me share with you how we've set up our sessions in order to best facilitate success with a one-on-one format. Okay. So, and what's funny is I was talking with both teams today, LA and New Orleans, and they both do it a little bit different. So you can kind of mess with this. That's the cool thing about it, is you can mess with it and find out what works best for you. So here in New Orleans, when both places we do 5 sessions, not 4. I think the standard is 4. Not that everybody does it, but it's pretty consistent, is 4. We do 5, but here's the thing. You can do as many as you want. So if you want to do a 6, 8, 10, 12 package deal, depending on the dog, build that program, or have it built into your website that we have like a basic 5 or 6 session set of one-on-ones, but with the ability to build on depending on what your dog's needs are. So that would be an easy way around that. And I think we've even toyed with the idea of exceptionally long one-on-ones, like 12 session one-on-ones for people that just for whatever reason the board and train is just out of their price range and they want to be more involved in the process, something like that, and they've got a more serious dog, and then we can do more and more sessions. Okay, let me cut to the chase. My nose is so itchy. So 5 sessions. First session, 2 hours. And you said, I think your first session is 1 hour. I have no idea how you would get stuff done in 1 hour because, and I'm going to get into a few details here.
One thing I want to get into as well.
Yep, hang on one sec. So if you're trying to meet somebody, connect with them, create trust, get them to feel safe and comfortable with you in an hour, and then get the dog out and work with the dog and get the dog into a good space, an hour goes by awfully fast. So here in New Orleans, and up till just recently in LA, we did, first session was 2 hours, then an hour, an hour, an hour, an hour. So that would be, right?
You missed one.
No, that's 4. I said, did I?
Yes.
Okay. So 2 hours, an hour, an hour, an hour, an hour, right? Okay, there we go. I'm bad with math. So that's how we would work it. So that 2 hours gives us a lot of time to work on e-collar heel, because most of the dogs have got issues with walking. Also work on e-collar recall, also work on maybe some place, things like that. And then you build and you build and you build. And then here's, okay, let me give you the Los Angeles program, and then I'll dive into a couple other specifics. So the Los Angeles program does it, do you remember exactly how they do it?
They do 1, 1, 1, and then the 4th is 2, and then 1. And so the reason why we do that is because basically we have the owners come in, hand us the dog, and then they leave. And then we have the dog, and they just come pick it up. And on the 4th session, we come together and transfer all the information. And then on the 5th, so basically you have 3 sessions where you do the work. The 4th session, you transfer everything to the owners, and then the 5th session is proving everything with the owners.
And kind of final go home and going over everything.
Right.
Yeah.
But for you, because you say to keep my training sessions with my clients under an hour, the very first thing, a good first thing to do before they even come to your house is send them an email explaining how it works. Hey, so when you first come out for the first 3 sessions, when you will be dropping Mikey off just for training, it will be a 20 seconds drop off, and anything else that you have questions about or anything we will discuss on the 4th and 5th session. So that way you already know, you're coming, you're giving me the dog, and I have 2 hours just to work with the dog. And that's why the LA team likes to have the 4th session 2 hours, so they can spend more time talking to them. Shelby and I here in New Orleans, we found having the first session longer works better for us.
Yeah, so the cool thing is you can kind of mess with both and see what you like, but there's a couple critical components here, and my itchy nose, I got dog hair everywhere, is that, okay, not having the client there is critical to this working. Mm-hmm. So almost everybody I know who does one-on-ones, they do their one-on-ones with the client there. That means you've got a far more distracted dog, a far more aroused dog, and a far more dangerous dog if the dog's got any proclivities to being naughty and dangerous like that, bitey or anything like that. So
and you have to take care of the humans too.
and great point. So you've also, your attention, instead of being focused directly on the dog, is also now,
And feeling like you have to explain what you're doing,
it's
but they will
distracted
never
off.
do press and hold.
Right.
And
And so you're working with the dog and you're also trying to explain to the human. So your attention is divided tremendously. Now imagine, if you will, that somebody, because you've sent some fabulous emails off to the clients far before this session ever starts, and you've let them know, I'm so glad you signed up. Here's some early homework. Here's what it's going to look like. Here's a PDF on the e-collar. Here's a PDF on the prong, and here's what the work's going to look like. I'm going to have you for the first 3 sessions. I'm going to come and meet you when you drop the dog off. We're going to say hi. There's coffee shops, restaurants, whatever, in this area, and you can hit any one of those, Starbucks, and hang out. But I'm going to just have you go and do your thing so I can focus on your dog singularly, to where I can best serve your dog. Because if your dog's not distracted, if your dog's not overly aroused, if your dog's not trying to bite me, and I'm not trying to also teach you simultaneously, I can help your dog move so much further ahead than if all those things were working against me. I'm shocked that so many trainers still work within that approach. I just think it works terribly against them. So I think a lot of people are nervous about asking owners not to be there.
Yeah.
And I think when we first started, we were like, what are they going to think? Is it going to be a weird thing? But the whole thing is, if you build enough trust, and a lot of that comes from brand and making sure people know who you are through content, and your website's fantastic, and your demeanor on phone and via email is fantastic, then people should be in a good enough space to where they feel comfortable with you. And a lot of owners are relieved. They're like, okay, cool, you're going to go and do that foundational work. You'd be surprised. You get a lot less resistance, I think, than what we ever anticipated. People are like, they literally, here you go.
And if you explain to them as well, saying for the best learning environment for the dog, not having you here will be super beneficial. And I'm sure most
and you get more bang for your buck.
Yeah, and I think for most people, hearing that and knowing, oh, that's better for my dog, it will bring them at ease, put them to ease.
It will put them to ease.
It will be nice.
Yes, it will put them to sleep. So that's the way we do it, right? So we do 5 sessions. If we need more, we also let them know. Like if they've got a more serious dog than we thought, if they've got a really serious dog, then we call it, and we don't do one-on-ones if the dog is really serious. We'll roll them into a board and train if they want. But if the dog isn't dangerous but just needs more work, they can always add another session on. But I'm telling you, I prefer more time in the beginning because I like the client to feel comfortable. I like to spend 15 minutes or so just chatting with them. And then I like to go out and do a whole bunch of groundwork with the dog initially. Make sure the clients aren't there, and let them know it's not so I can like take your dog and go whoop its behind without you looking. It's so I can be easier on your dog. Because if your dog's not aroused, not excited, not being dangerous, we can have a nice easy training time, and it's not distracted by you, and it's in its best space. And I don't have to constantly tell you everything I'm doing, because I'm going to tell you later down the line. So if you can get comfortable with that, and you can start to look at how you can manage a little bit of a longer session the first time, and then more sessions, and then adjust your pricing to where it all works out, then I think you've got a really good shot at making one-on-ones work, because our one-on-ones work really, really nicely for us, even with some fairly challenging dogs. But we had to elongate it from 4 to 5 sessions, and we had to add an extra hour, and we had to have the clients leave so we could get the most progress with the dogs. So that's something to chew on. That's a whole bunch to chew on. And hopefully it helps you kind of find your way with how to do that. So hopefully that helps, Daniel.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay. So, question number 8 is from Brenda. Brenda saying, Shawn, hey, and thank you so much for this Q&A.
Welcome.
We have 2 nearly 4-year-old Aussies, male siblings intact. We've had them since 8 weeks old. My dogs are great with thresholds, even with pasture gates. Come down, sit, stand, wait. Heel would easily be better if I spent more time. They run and play hard together, one more than the other. We have 5 acres, so we are outside a lot. They live inside their sporadic jerks when the other one isn't getting attention, which is not lavish.
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 Here's how it goes. I reach down to scruffle one of their heads. The other gives him a stink eye. Then who I'm petting growls at him. Now both growl, look at me still growling, and then shake, tremble, because they know they are now up doo-doo stream. Now I have not
I think that's Schitt's Creek.
Now I have not smacked them for this in 3 years. Instead, I put the instigator in the down, walk away, and tell the reactor knees, a command he knows, which means get your body sideways against my knees. And with all joviality happily slams up against my knees, growl gone. When I use the bonker on said reactor, his growl gets worse. Having him do a couple of commands he's happy to do, then down, do the same with instigator. All is well when I tell them break 30 minutes later. All well for a spell, few days, maybe a week, and then again. I don't know how to get through. Happened today again, just prior to having read your post on Prince and Princess. I do have read your book. My vet says neuter them. I don't see how that will change it all, but perhaps I'm missing something. I clearly am missing something. I am willing, just don't know what to do. Please help.
Can I ask for your help first?
Yes.
There's a rocket launching in our laundry room. You think maybe we could shut that door?
I fix it.
Okay. While she fixes that, sorry guys, it's so fucking loud. Okay, so Brenda, so you're primarily managing your dogs, right? So you've got a lot of commands, you've done a lot of work, a lot of good stuff, but the problem is that without consequences for what they're doing, like real consequences, not like get them into a different command, get them to go to knees or whatever, something like that. Those are all management techniques. That's like the same concept of a dog that jumps and you tell them to sit instead. It's like that doesn't stop the jumping necessarily. It just tells the dog to do something else until the next time they want to jump. So you are just managing, and I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I just want you to really get the concept that if you want to get through this, that you're going to have to find a way to move through management to actually changing the behavior through consequences. So let's see if we can dissect this super quick. So instead of, and it gets dicey, right? So I think you said you're like scruffling one of the dog's heads, and I don't know how close the dogs are. So first and foremost, Billy Brown. Her hair like finds my nose no matter what. So if your dogs are coming in for affection, they should never be like this. Don't ever do that. Okay? So if unless you're the dog master trainer who's setting it up to be like, come on in and I'll show you guys that nobody F's around. That's for like the elite people that know how to like deal with the hardest situations. Everybody else, that's setting themselves up for disaster. So let's get rid of that. It's a super easy thing to move away. Did you shut the door to the laundry room? You sure? Because it sounds like there's a rocket launching.
They can't hear it because your mic is right by your.
Okay, I sure can hear it. Anyways, it just sounds so loud.
It's the aircon and the dryer and the washing machine all at the same time.
Okay, should we turn the stereo on?
Yes.
Okay,
the ladies gotta clean at some point.
Let's get this party started. So anyway,
passive cleaning.
Like passive training.
Yes.
Okay.
It's
so
like I have my washing machine on place. I'm sorry. Okay, go.
Okay, that was a good one. So Polish humor strikes again. Yay!
I thought that was a good
That's what I'm saying. It's good. Like Polish humor is coming from behind.
Oh, okay,
Like
okay.
it's developing and finding its own. So, okay, here's the deal. I'll talk louder in case you can't hear me over the rocket that's launching in the other room. So, easiest way to get rid of the tension is not to create the tension. Don't let your dogs come in and vie for affection, which is what's happening. You are a juicy bone and you don't realize it. You're sitting here, the giver of all things, the walks, the play, the food, the affection, the whole schmeal, and one dog's coming in, you scruffily one dog's neck or one dog's, head or neck, and the other dog's like, I don't like that. It's like, well, that's because the one dog's getting the bone and the other dog's not. Then you get the stink eye. Then you start to get this dog escalate and it starts to go back and forth. And then you get into your management mode. So what you have to do if you want to just start from a kind of base level of doing smart stuff to just remove those possibilities, just don't bring both dogs in. Like I wouldn't feed two dogs out of the same bowl or out of bowls right next to each other just to like see if they can do it. And I know that's not what you're doing, but I'm giving you a comparison. I wouldn't do that because I know the chance of that creating competition and friction and possibly a fight are super high. So dogs are going to be fed separately or they're going to be fed in their crates or things like that. So if you extend that to getting affection, then it makes it really easy. This is one of the most common triggers for dog fights. Affection. Dogs come in, boom, all of a sudden they're like, I'm going to clean your clock because I want this. I want this person who's the juicy bone. So that's the first thing to do. Get rid of that if you want to just cut out the possibilities of that silliness. And that's not management. That's smart strategy. There's a difference between creating the problem and then managing it or just not creating the problem at all. So I want to create that distinction. Next, if you do find yourself in a situation where you haven't created that, but the situation is arising where you're seeing tension building, where you're seeing, for whatever reason, whether you happen to be like watching TV and your two dogs come up and all of a sudden you see tension between them, or you're walking between them to go somewhere and you see tension, like whatever it might be, here's the deal. Don't give them a fucking command to do something else. Don't give them an incompatible command that what you see is like it relaxes them and they calm down because they start shaking because they're a doo-doo stream or whatever. If it worked, if you were like, this works, like amazing, I'd be like, cool. If it works, great. But this stuff, it's not working for you and it typically doesn't work for anybody else or most anybody else. So here's the deal. If it was my dogs and this situation was happening and I found myself where I'm sitting just like this and one dog's here and one dog's here and I feel some tension going on, I'm going to whoop both my dogs' behinds. Like maybe I'll go after the instigator first, but the other one's going to get it too. Like, no, neither of you guys get to mess around. Neither of you guys get to be like vying for this resource, whatever it might be, whether it's me, whether it's a toy, whether it's food, whether it's a spot on the couch, doesn't matter. Correct. You need to share a consequence that's valuable enough with your dog or your dogs to where they will stop competing over you or anything else. I can't stress that firmly enough. Now the question gets into what tools do you have? And I think you said that you've used a bonker before, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
The whole thing with the bonker is that the bonker has to be used very, very specifically. You have to load the bonker like a clicker, which means you have to correct the dog with the bonker when they're doing almost nothing, when they're the slightest emanation of some negative behavior. It doesn't even have to do with the other dog. Might be, coming into the kitchen when they're not supposed to, or like trying to sniff up on the counter when there's food up there. Any tiny little emanation of a transgression, no, bang. And your dog goes, whoa, okay, I got the full conversation of what you're trying to tell me. That no predicts that there's a consequence coming from a bonker. And I know everybody's got this huge, big, fucking crazy thing about bonkers. It's like it's a rolled up towel and your dogs are fine. And like, Jesus, it's a huge thing. So like, if anybody's got a problem with it, feel free to message me about it and yeah, we'll go from there. But it can be a very, very effective tool for some dogs. So, but you have to do it right. You have to do the sequence right. You have to load the bonker to where if you try and correct your dog when they're in a tense moment, you're wasting your time. Your dog's not even going to notice that happened. The dog has to be, like I said, in like at a level 1 where the dog's just like that. Boom, consequence. Oh, I'm not supposed to do that. So next time that you actually say no, your dog's like, I got it, because they grabbed the whole conversation that you shared because they were relaxed enough to be able to absorb it. So that's if you're using a bonker. Now you can use an e-collar. You can use a prong collar if you're letting your dogs like drag a leash and prong collar around the house. For a lot of folks, that's inconvenient. Your dogs are e-collar trained. You can absolutely use that. Here's the thing though, any e-collar corrections, which is what I was talking about when I was working with Prince and Princess, is the reason why when Princess would start to get into Prince's space and start to make him feel uncomfortable, I would get into her space, not just spatial pressure because she didn't really care about it. I would actually move her physically away with physical pressure. I would step into her and move her and nudge.
Decline as well.
Yeah, and nudge her away. Then I would correct her with the e-collar for breaking command. And it would all happen in a fairly quick sequence. So I'd be giving Prince some pets. She would start to move. I would say no, move into her, quick tap with the e-collar for probably down because she's probably moved around. I want her back in position. But I wouldn't correct her when she's like right close or right on top of Prince because you don't want to create a fight. So
and real quick, just for like while you have the two dogs, so one teaching place would be a good one. So you have like a layer of safety. So if you have a place bed here and you're petting one dog here to kind of see what's going to happen, you have the layer of like, do not step off of place. So if there's a growl, you have time to walk over and then correct rather than them being free roaming. But if you're doing exercises like you saw in the photo of Shawn and Prince and Princess, I would 100% have a leash on. So now imagine they're both standing here and you give one of them pets. This one over here starts growling. I would hold the leash here, walk over with spatial pressure, go over if it has a prong collar on, go no. With
or
like
if not, give them a nice knee, like to the chest, like give it some nice pressure.
Preferably e-collar, high correction, because that stuff is something you want to 100% crush and squish instead of correcting, and then it comes back, and then correcting, comes back, and you end up correcting way more than necessary because you keep underwhelming the dog. And like with stuff like that, and that's two siblings as well, and raising sibling is really, really difficult. So that they haven't had like a real full-on fight is to me
great.
A great sign.
Yeah, but I have to say I like your strategy, and it's
one thing I just want to say is the very personal, physical meaning behind those corrections, because those growls are not just like, oh, I broke place, or like, oh, I'm not going to come back because I don't feel like it. It's very intentional. It's saying, I want this. So you have to go, instead of the e-collar correction that's, again, very neutral, you have to go, you will never do this again.
And that comes from me.
From me.
And this thing that you think is a resource, I'm not a resource. So stay the hell away unless I invite you in. Hopefully you guys, everybody watching this can really get this dynamic, because what we're sharing with you right now is the crux of what a lot of trainers are missing. Owners as well, but a lot of trainers are missing it because it's not the pretty looking dog training. It's not the dog training where the dog prances around and it's all e-collar stuff and the dog just does everything perfectly. It's real training. It's real life training. It's what happens when dogs don't care about an e-collar correction in the same way, because there is a difference. There is a difference when you move into a dog's space, and I don't just mean spatially, but I mean like physically move in. If the dog thinks I'm a resource, I'm going to come in and be like, you better rethink that I'm a resource. And if you do that, then you start to dissipate the dog's perception of you being a resource, and then you start to dissipate the friction between the dogs because the juicy bone that was you starts to go away.
And one thing, just also as like an example with our 3 dogs, they all get along really well, and we are waiting for our puppy to arrive in 7 weeks or something like that. So none of them are neutered or spayed. Marula is getting spayed, then Archie's getting neutered, and then all of that stuff, because even though, I mean, you have 2 males, so it's a bit different. We have 2 females. So, but basically what I'm trying to say is you don't need the extra of like that, like extra animalistic, the most important to an animal is to breed. So you have like that extra spice. But with the neutering, do whatever you want. But what I'm trying to say here is we have 3 dogs, and what we've started implementing is no one is allowed to come up and solicit affection unless we want to go and give affection, because one comes up and is like, hey, do you want to pet me? And then the other ones come, oh, I want some too.
And now they're vying for it.
Right. So instead of that, I'll go up and pet one. If the other ones come up, no. And when I say that, they already know, oh, okay, I like can't come and do that. So you have established this is not up for grabs. This is, if I want it, I will give it. And not to be like too hardcore, but we want everyone to, we want to set them up for success, especially with a new puppy coming.
Right. And I'm just going to disagree with one thing you said.
Okay. Oh my God.
Hang in there. So you were talking about neutering, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes.
Right?
If she should or shouldn't.
Let me make sure. Yep. So 99.9999999% of dogs that we get in are already neutered and have all the problems, whether it's dog aggression, whether it's human aggression, resource guarding, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So for me, I've never seen neutering, and that's not the only data point or the only evidence. Hang on one sec. I got to get this thought out. The only evidence I have, as far as what I've seen owners with problem dogs then go get the dogs neutered and go through training, and I haven't seen the neutering create any benefit. So neutering, in my experience, does not create a benefit. And I would not go with what your vet is suggesting with that, because if neutering really did create a benefit, then we wouldn't be seeing a preponderance of neutered dogs. We'd be seeing a preponderance, it's just simple math, we'd be seeing a preponderance of dogs that were unneutered. So I wouldn't go with the neutering thing. I'd go with everything else that we shared with you. Sound good?
Well, what I was saying is that for us, because we have a female and male, and the females get into heat, and then it creates that kind of friction. That's why I
right.
said
We don't,
it doesn't
yeah.
really matter in that case why we are doing it. Otherwise, we wouldn't probably.
Right. We're not trying to prevent fights. We're just like.
Right. That's
we
why,
don't need extra
that's
puppies.
Why you didn't
and
have to disagree with
okay. I just wanted to assert my
okay.
dominance.
I accept your apologies.
Okay. Thanks. All right.
Okay.
Next question. Let's move on.
Let's do it. I am so excited these are back. I have started listening to the podcast and I am on episode 27.
Mm-hmm.
This is perfect to...
It gets better.
This is perfect to timing, because I just started with a dog yesterday and I need advice.
Mm-hmm.
I do a 6-week course. It's 3 days a week in the client's house. Not
Mm-hmm.
ideal, but it's all I can do at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I train sit, down, place, on and off leash, heel, and recall. Then I use that foundation to address any issues needed. The dog I started with yesterday is very shy. She lived as a stray for years, and any home she had in the past, she was tied in the backyard. She's also a master escape artist, so we will be doing a lot of threshold work. She's not very treat motivated, and we spent the lesson yesterday trying to get her used to me. I am okay giving her time to get used to me before training, because then once she is used to me and we train, we can use foundation to build her confidence. She will come near me and let me walk her in the leash, but she's very anxious. I usually use treats to start with, baiting, then I add in prong and e-collar.
Mm-hmm. I think
How
she means
can I-
like luring. Yeah.
How can I start train her if she doesn't get more comfortable with me, or if she will not engage in treats? The parents are going to give a light breakfast today, so when I get there, she may be more interested in treats. I have TGD's bundle, and I'm watching the videos and looking at the PDF, but any advice would be great.
I like a light breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Keeps me hungry and motivated throughout the day. Okay, all bad jokes aside, let's move on. Okay, so I'm glad that you are excited about us being back. I'm apologetic about my bad joke that didn't go anywhere. And I think she said she's also got the bundle and working through that, so that's great. So here's a quick thing, and I've got to go quick because this is getting super long in the tooth, LaDawn. If you happen to watch this. You know this one?
Because you say it so often, I now remember.
See, there you go.
I'm learning.
You're learning. Okay, so if the dog was super, this is not just for you. I want to try and make sure it covers a lot of ground for a lot of people. If the dog came to TGD and was super fearful, if a dog is super fearful, they're not going to take any food from you, even if you give them a light breakfast, no matter what. They'll probably go days and days without taking food. Yeah. If they're really in that like almost like kind of what's the word? Not wild. What's the other word? Feral. If they're in that kind of like almost feral, wild coyote kind of like just trying to escape away from you at any cost, then what we will typically do is we'll start with a long line. And doesn't mean it has to be super long, but a long line, and then we'll shorten it up and we can lengthen it as we go, and an e-collar, and we'll start doing low-level recalls in over and over and over again. Right? So the dog's going to wander out, let them get all the way to whatever distance you want, press, hold, start to roll up, add a teeny bit of pressure, and I mean a teeny bit of pressure to the leash just to let the dog know, like, this is the direction I want you to come. But then let the dog decide, okay, I feel that pressure of the direction from the leash, but the e-collar's not motivating enough because I really don't want to be near you. You're still holding, you roll up a little bit. It's happening faster than this, mind you. You're at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All of a sudden, the dog, you give a little more pressure, the dog turns, starts to come towards you, off the button, guide. Give lots of verbal praise, as long as the verbal praise works. If the verbal praise overwhelms and freaks out the dog, just stay quiet and relaxed and calm. There's a million different ways to go about this. Your main priority and focus is to be focused on that dog and what is working for that dog. So if verbal praise and backwards motion, which is typically what works, is working, great. If you use verbal praise and you start moving backwards at all and the dog like gets freaked out by it, just stay calm, maybe kneel down, reel the dog in. If the dog like then veers off, go the opposite direction of the dog. This is a very simple protocol for dogs that are exceptionally fearful. So I'm giving you like the juicy insight and everybody else. So button on, guidance, roll up, find the level, like you're looking for clutch and gas, find the level where it's just enough of pressure here to tell the dog where to go, just enough pressure here for the dog to actually care about it and be motivated. As soon as the dog turns, off the button, backing up, good. Bring the dog in, and then as the dog gets halfway, it goes the opposite direction. Instead of going towards the dog, you go the opposite direction. Now you're completely behind the dog, and you do the same thing over and over again. And when the dog goes this direction, you go the opposite direction, and you just keep going back and backwards behind the dog and guiding him in. And what ends up happening is a very simple thing that I call reverse perception, I think. And the perception is, you're scary, I don't like you, I want to stay away from you. And by doing the e-collar work like this, what you end up doing is you reverse that perception. The perception becomes, I think it's better to be away from you. And by low-level e-collar stim, the dog's like, that's kind of uncomfortable. You guide them in, and as they move 2, 3, 4 feet towards you, that goes away. And as they get closer to you, they're like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like, this guy I was worried about, like, when I get closer to him, it gets better. And you let them do it over and over and over again. And so the perception of like, you're a bad man turns into like, hey, you're kind of cool. And if you know how to do it and you're not overwhelming the dog with high-level e-collar corrections, no big taps or pops or anything like that, no tugs on the leash. This is a very gentle, nuanced thing where you're just press, hold, guide the dog in. It's a dance with the dog. Like, you really have to be connected. Dog goes that way, opposite direction, bring him in. Next thing you know, the dog's like standing right next to you and it's like, how'd I get here? And you're like, I don't know. It's pretty cool. So that's if you've got a really fearful dog, right? Now, this sounds like this dog might not be that level of fear. It might just be insecure and nervous. So let's move on to the other thing. So what I would do is I would just start, which is how we start with dogs that are insecure, nervous, anxious, worried, but not overwhelmed with fear. We just start the program. We start it without food. And what I found, and this is really interesting, a lot of trainers will wait until food drive is kicked in, which can go a long, long time. What I found is if you start working with the dog, just leash and prong, place, sit, down, recall, let's go, just moving around with them, you'll find that the dog will start to feel more comfortable with you more quickly and will be more likely to take food from you and be more food motivated because their comfort level has raised because they're creating a relationship with you by working with you. So rather than wait the dog out and be like, they're not food motivated enough yet, I can't really do anything. Instead, get into the program and start doing it and then see where the dog goes with it. So for us, we will do leash and prong with these guys that don't want to use food, and we'll just do the whole program, get that all nice. 3-4 days in, e-collar goes on. We start doing low-level e-collar stuff, reinforcing all of the commands. Sit down, place, recall, let's go, e-collar, heel, all that stuff. And then typically, these dogs that might have been worried, insecure, unsure, they get a little more comfortable and you start offering food and they start taking food and they get a little bit more jazzed, a little more excited. Things start to feel better. They start to feel more connected. And that's because you built a relationship through doing work. So that would be my suggestion to you, would be instead of waiting on the food to click in, shift your approach a bit and go straight to doing the work. Not hard work, not abrasive work, not like overly firm work, sensitive, soft work that ends up building a certain kind of trust and confidence in the engagement with you, to where the dog will then go, okay, cool. Like, we're 4 days into this or 2 weeks into whatever your program looks like. And now I'm okay. I'm okay to take food now. And I'm feeling better about this whole thing. That's me wagging my tail. Feeling better about this whole thing. And then you move to e-collar and you do the whole program. So that's my recommendation for that. Cool?
Nothing else to add.
Awesome.
Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Cool. Question number 10.
Number 10 now.
From Hey Naners on Instagram.
That's a hard one to say.
Hey Naners.
Hey Naners.
Here's one. How do you approach a situation where someone started out with an e-collar with bad advice, not enough research, and now has a very confused pup? Do you have them take a break? Would the dog forget any weird associations it has developed with collar tabs, given some time? Would they be able to restart from scratch if under careful professional guidance? Is the e-collar ruined as a training tool?
Okay,
Take
this is a super awesome question. And I don't know if we've had anybody ask it before, so I'm really excited to answer it. And in some ways, it's a little similar to the last question, but different. And so here's the thing. We get dogs from all over. We get dogs from out of state. We get dogs from other trainers. We get dogs from rescues, from shelters, from families. We get dogs that have been through, like, the family will say, like, you're our 5th trainer. So it's like, God only knows what training approaches have gone down, like what kind of food work or prong work or e-collar work or markers or commands. It's like, literally, God only knows what the dog's been through. And I don't mean that like this. I just mean like God only knows what the dog's been through as far as like education, teaching, training, and things like that. So what we do is we just forget it all. We just start with a clean slate. Now, that said, Doesn't mean that we won't see moments where we're like, feels like that dog was probably corrected for this, or that dog was probably done a shit ton of food work with, because whenever food's brought out, this dog like goes through the roof. Doesn't mean he couldn't have just natural food drive, but oftentimes you can see dogs that have done a lot of food work, the way they watch your hands, the way they watch everything that goes down. So what we do is, no matter what, we have our program that we start with, which is basically heel and place. Of course, we start with crate and thresholds first, because before a dog can do anything else, they've got to come into our facility. They've got to move through thresholds, and that's where we create the very beginning, right? So the very beginning of the relationship. Then they've got to be able to go into a crate. That creates a second piece of the relationship. So those are kind of fundamental givens. But past that point, then we move into e-collar heel. E-collar heel is the only command that we move into straight away with e-collar. Everything else we start with prong. There's a reason for it. I'm not going to get into it right now because I've done it in a bunch of other broadcasts, podcasts, TV shows, whatever the hell this thing's called, explaining why we do it like that. It just works better. So you have to take my word on that. But I prefer leash and prong, for all the interior work: sit, down, place, recall. I find it to be easier on the dog. I find it to be less stressful. I find it to be less confusing, because there's direct pressure coming from a human holding a line or a leash that the dog can see, and you can give them very clear guidance. And okay, I'll dive into it really quick. As far as e-collar heel, you can use a prong collar only, but so often dogs are so driven on the walk to pull, that you actually have to be harder on the dog with just a prong collar alone. Whereas if you have a prong collar for guidance and the e-collar, and you're combining both those forces, you can be far more gentle with the dog. So the reason that we've mixed and matched and messed with both of them, but we found is that e-collar heel straight out of the gate, easier on the dog. Prong collar work without an e-collar, for the first stuff, easier on the dog. Can you mix and match? Can you start prong for the walk? Yes. Could you do e-collar stuff straight out of the gate for interior work? Yes. These are about nuanced decisions about what works best for the dogs. That all said, we just jettison any potential, like clients will tell us all the time, well, he's done this, this, and this, and he's done this kind of work. But to be honest, unless you were there watching the trainer do the work with the dog, you really don't know what was done. You really don't know the commands. You don't know the timing. You don't know how good it was. Don't know how bad it was. You really don't know anything. So all you can do is just clean slate it, and just hopefully have your own program that you really feel solid about, and just build from there. And that's how we do it. And I can only imagine how many dogs come and see us after having been through God only knows what kind of training protocols and confusion and stuff like that. That's the great thing about dogs. They're super adaptable. Once you start sharing a consistent program with, here are the commands, this command means this, we're going to be very fair, we're going to teach you very fair and slow, here are the markers, these markers mean this, here's how the pressure works, here's how the e-collar works, and you do all that, and it replaces all of that old stuff. Now, could you see possibly some residual effect of a dog that was like, who knows, maybe blasted for something, like eating poop in the backyard or counter surfing? You could, but I'm telling you, for all the dogs we get, which are hundreds and hundreds of dogs a year, and like I said, we're usually second, third, fourth, fifth trainer, God only knows what they've been through, but they all seem to do fantastic with the program. So my suggestion would be to kind of let go of the anxiety of, do we need to get rid of this tool because it's probably been used wrong, or maybe it's been used wrong, and instead start from scratch, reprogram, reboot, and restart the dog in the appropriate fashion, and the dog will come along just fine. We haven't had a problem with that yet with a dog
like
that's
with
clear-headed.
positive reinforcement trainers who don't know how to teach markers properly. Does it mean that you can't teach markers anymore? It means you have to retrain the dog. Or like if I have a shitty math teacher and they teach me something wrong, does it mean I can't learn math anymore?
That's a great example.
I still can. I just have to be retaught.
Right.
So just
or history class. They teach you the wrong dates or the wrong details about a history
even
thing.
An experience that you dislike, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is an experience that you don't like. Like I had a shitty dentist. Does it mean I'm not going to go to a dentist anymore because I still have to go to a dentist, but hopefully you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it's about
but that's
experience.
A great example. So I like your math example. I like my history example too. And if you think
that came after my math.
Okay, I know, but I think mine's
You
even
took
better.
it from me.
But I think it's really important that if you think about it like that how many things have you learned that haven't been right or might have been confusing?
Or the experience wasn't great.
Right? Wasn't great or was confusing or worrisome, but then somebody or something came along, helped you get back on the path, and then you learn the correct way and you're fine. We're all resilient, and dogs are so resilient and so adaptable that if you do a good job of restarting, I think you got a really great shot at them being fantastic. What I want to close this out with is that it's really important for dog trainers, but especially dog owners, to understand that you're most likely not going to be perfect. Not most likely, you're not going to be perfect. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to be at levels that are too high or levels that are too low. Your timing is going to miss. You're going to have moments where you're like, fuck, I did the wrong thing. I messed it up. But the whole thing is, if you just go back and redo it and make it better, make it better, make it better, make it better, you'll get to where you've got a great situation with your dog. So her dogs, even though she was finding her way, she did have resources. Was it perfect? No. Did she make mistakes? Yes. But she's got dogs that recall perfectly, that will hold downs around other dogs running around perfectly. She's got dogs she can walk anywhere. So obviously it worked. And that's kind of the cool thing to take away from this whole program, is that you don't have to be perfect to be successful. You want to shoot for as high as you can, but you also have to give yourself a break. You have to give yourself some slack and know you're going to make mistakes. All of us make mistakes. Even like having done this for years and years and years, I'll still watch a video and be like, what the hell was I doing? Or that timing was off, or it was this, or it was that. And dogs, if you're like 90% of the time in a good space, they're going to do just fine. Yeah. So, and with that, I think we should get out of here. This has been a nice 3-hour marathon. Sleepy time. So nice work, lady. That was I think our best Q&A Saturday together so far. I think it just means 18 cups of coffee and 14 cookies.
And lots of cookies, yeah.
And we're okay.
The best Q&A ever
today. All right? So
I said to date.
To date. So yeah, that makes more sense than today. Right. Anyways, guys, it's late. Brains are cooked. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And any questions, of course, hit us up. We'll be happy to expound on any of the answers that we've given you, or any kind of clarifications if you need them, which you might, because God only knows we rambled a lot. All right, guys, see ya in a month.